My name is Dr. Jack Nelson, and in my 23 years as an endocrinologist specializing in diabetes care for patients over 60, I have never been more alarmed by what I'm seeing in my practice. Just yesterday, a 72-year-old patient walked into my office clutching a bottle of something called Miracle Sugar Flush Tea, telling me his neighbor promised it would eliminate his blood sugar problems once and for all. He had stopped taking his metformin because, and I quote, "The internet said this tea would cure me in 24 hours. This is the third case this month. The fifth case this quarter. And frankly, I'm terrified for what's happening to our most vulnerable population. Today, I'm breaking my professional silence because I can no longer watch while predatory marketers target people over 60 with dangerous, life-threatening promises about miracle teas that supposedly eliminate blood sugar forever. The marketing is sophisticated, the testimonials seem convincing, and the desperation of people struggling with diabetes makes them perfect targets for these elaborate scams. But here's what those marketers don't want you to know. I've spent the last 6 months diving deep into every single study, every piece of research, every clinical trial involving herbal teas and blood glucose management. What I discovered will shock you, but more importantly, it might save your life or the life of someone you love. You see, there's a grain of truth buried in these outrageous claims, and that's exactly what makes them so dangerous. Certain teas can have modest effects on blood sugar. But the way these benefits are being twisted, exaggerated, and weaponized against older adults is nothing short of medical fraud. In the next hour, I'm going to pull back the curtain on this entire industry. I'll show you the real science behind tea and blood sugar, expose the red flags that should immediately make you run from any product making absolute promises, and most importantly, I'll give you a practical, medically sound framework for safely incorporating certain teas into a comprehensive diabetes management plan that actually works. But first, let me be crystal clear about what this presentation is and what it isn't. This is educational content based on current medical research and my clinical experience. This is not medical advice for your specific situation. Nothing I say today replaces the need to work with your healthcare provider. If you're currently taking diabetes medications, blood thinners, blood pressure medications, or have any chronic health conditions, you must consult with your doctor before making any changes to your treatment plan. I'm also not here to sell you anything. I have no financial interest in any tea company, supplement manufacturer, or product. My only agenda is keeping you safe while giving you accurate, actionable information you can use to have informed conversations with your healthcare team. Now, why is this topic exploding specifically among people over 60? 3 reasons that keep me up at night. First, diabetes becomes significantly more challenging to manage as we age. Your body's insulin sensitivity naturally decreases. Your liver processes glucose differently. Your muscle mass typically declines, which affects how your body uses sugar. The result? More frequent blood sugar spikes, more medications with more side effects, and a growing sense that conventional medicine isn't enough. Second, the marketing targeting this age group has become incredibly sophisticated and predatory. These companies know exactly which emotional buttons to push. They use terms like, "Doctors don't want you to know this," and "Pharmaceutical companies hate this one secret." They prey on frustration with complex medication regimens and the very real desire for natural solutions. Third, and this is crucial, people over 60 are often dealing with multiple medications, making them particularly vulnerable to dangerous interactions. That innocent-looking tea could interfere with blood thinners, amplify the effects of diabetes medications causing dangerous low blood sugar, or interact with heart medications in ways that could be life-threatening. But here's the thing that really gets me: there are legitimate, scientifically backed ways that certain teas can support blood sugar management. The tragedy is that the fraudulent claims are drowning out the real, modest, but potentially helpful effects that some herbal compounds can have when used correctly as part of a comprehensive approach. So let me start by dismantling the biggest, most dangerous myth being pushed right now: the idea that any tea can eliminate blood sugar problems once and for all. This is medically impossible. Your body needs glucose to function. Your brain runs primarily on glucose. Even if you never ate another carbohydrate in your life, your liver would continue producing glucose through a process called gluconeogenesis. The goal isn't to eliminate blood sugar. It's to keep it in a healthy range that prevents complications while allowing your body and brain to function optimally. When someone promises a tea will eliminate your blood sugar problems forever, they're revealing a fundamental misunderstanding of human physiology that should immediately disqualify them from giving you health advice. Now, can certain teas have modest, measurable effects on blood glucose management? Absolutely. And I'm going to show you exactly what the science says, how significant these effects really are, and how to evaluate whether incorporating certain teas might be beneficial for your specific situation. But first, you need to understand exactly how blood sugar works in your body after age 60, because this is where the marketing gets really deceptive. Here's what happens in your body when you eat something containing carbohydrates. Your digestive system breaks down those carbs into glucose, which enters your bloodstream. Your pancreas responds by releasing insulin, which acts like a key that unlocks your cells so they can absorb and use that glucose for energy. In a healthy system, this process keeps your blood sugar in a narrow range, roughly 70 to 140 milligrams per deciliter, depending on whether you've recently eaten. But after age 60, several things change. Your pancreas may not produce insulin as efficiently. Your muscle cells, which are major consumers of glucose, may become less sensitive to insulin's signal. Your liver, which both stores and releases glucose, may become less responsive to hormonal signals that control blood sugar. The result is that your blood sugar tends to rise higher after meals and stay elevated longer. This is why so many people develop type 2 diabetes or prediabetes later in life, even if they've never had blood sugar problems before. Now here's where the tea marketers get clever and dangerous. They'll show you a graph of blood sugar rising after a meal, then claim their tea blocks or flushes out that sugar. But that's not how your body works. What certain tea compounds can potentially do is very different and much more modest. Some may slightly improve your cell's sensitivity to insulin. Others might slow down the digestion of carbohydrates, leading to a more gradual rise in blood sugar rather than a spike. Still others might have mild effects on liver glucose production. These are meaningful benefits, but they're subtle, they take weeks or months to develop, and they only work as part of a comprehensive approach that includes appropriate nutrition, physical activity, stress management, and when necessary, medication. Let me give you some real numbers so you understand the magnitude of what we're talking about. The most well-studied tea compound for blood sugar is probably epigallocatechin gallate, or EGCG, found in green tea. Multiple studies have shown that regular green tea consumption can lead to modest improvements in fasting blood sugar and hemoglobin A1C, which is a measure of your average blood sugar over the past 3 months. But when I say modest, I mean modest. We're talking about potential reductions in fasting blood glucose of maybe 5 to 15 milligrams per deciliter, and A1C improvements of 0.2 to 0.5%. For context, that's roughly equivalent to what you might achieve by taking a 10-minute walk after each meal, or replacing 1 serving of refined carbs per day with high-fiber vegetables. These are not insignificant benefits, but they're a far cry from eliminating blood sugar forever. And they only occur when tea consumption is combined with other healthy lifestyle changes and maintained consistently over time. Another tea that's received significant research attention is white mulberry leaf tea. Several studies have suggested it may help reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes by inhibiting certain enzymes involved in carbohydrate digestion. Again, the effects are modest but measurable in some people. Hibiscus tea has been studied for both blood pressure and blood sugar effects, with some research suggesting it may help with both. Cinnamon tea or cinnamon-containing herbal blends have shown some promise in improving insulin sensitivity, though the effects are generally small and inconsistent between studies. But here's the crucial point. Every single legitimate study on these teas emphasizes that they should be used as adjuncts to, not replacements for, standard diabetes care. Not one peer-reviewed study has ever suggested that any tea can replace diabetes medications or eliminate the need for dietary and lifestyle management. Moreover, the studies that do show benefits typically involve people drinking these teas consistently for months while also following healthy diets and exercise programs. The tea isn't doing the heavy lifting, it's providing a modest boost to a comprehensive approach. Now, let me address the safety concerns that keep me up at night, especially for people over 60. Many of the teas being marketed for blood sugar contain concentrated herbal extracts that can have significant interactions with common medications. For example, if you're taking blood thinners like warfarin or newer anticoagulants, certain herbal teas can either increase your bleeding risk or interfere with the medication's effectiveness. If you're on diabetes medications, particularly insulin or drugs like glipizide that can cause low blood sugar, adding herbal compounds that also lower blood glucose could push you into dangerous hypoglycemic territory. Hibiscus, while generally safe, can lower blood pressure. If you're already taking blood pressure medications, the combination could cause your pressure to drop too low, leading to dizziness, falls, and injuries. Many herbal teas contain compounds that are processed by your liver and kidneys. If you have any degree of liver or kidney impairment, which becomes more common with age, these compounds could accumulate to problematic levels. And let's talk about caffeine. Many of the teas being promoted contain significant amounts of caffeine, which can interfere with sleep, increase anxiety, and potentially worsen blood sugar control through stress hormones. For people over 60 who may already be dealing with sleep issues or increased sensitivity to stimulants, this can be particularly problematic. But perhaps the most insidious danger is what I call replacement thinking. When someone believes a tea is going to solve their blood sugar problems, they may become less diligent about medication compliance, dietary awareness, or regular monitoring. I've seen patients stop checking their blood sugar because they assumed the tea was taking care of it. This is where people get into serious medical trouble. So how can you tell if a tea product or promotion is legitimate versus fraudulent? I've developed what I call the red flag checklist, and if you see any of these warning signs, you should immediately walk away. Red flag number 1, absolute language. Any product that claims to eliminate, cure, reverse, or flush out blood sugar completely is lying. Period. Real medical interventions are described with careful, measured language like may help support or could contribute to. Red flag number 2, timeline promises. Anything claiming to work in 24 hours, 48 hours, or even a week is scientifically implausible. Real metabolic changes take weeks to months to develop and measure. Red flag number 3, universal claims. If they say their product works for everyone or all diabetes, they're ignoring the reality that diabetes is a complex, highly individual condition that requires personalized management. Red flag number 4, doctor bashing. Legitimate health information doesn't pit natural approaches against medical care. If they're claiming doctors don't want you to know this, or the medical establishment is hiding this, they're trying to isolate you from professional medical guidance, which is dangerous. Red flag number 5, testimonials without context. Real before and after stories include information about other changes the person made, how long the process took, and usually mention working with healthcare providers. Dramatic testimonials with no context or medical supervision are typically fabricated. Red flag number 6, artificial urgency. Limited time offers, last chance, or only 100 bottles left, are marketing tactics designed to pressure you into buying before you have time to research or consult with your doctor. Red flag number 7, no references or fake science. Legitimate health claims are backed by peer-reviewed research that they'll gladly share. If they mention studies, but don't provide citations, or if their research comes from their own company or unknown sources, be very suspicious. Now, does this mean all teas are useless for blood sugar management? Absolutely not. But it means you need to approach them with realistic expectations and a systematic evaluation process. I've developed what I call the 3P framework for evaluating any potential addition to your diabetes management plan: proof, protection, and planning. Let's start with proof. Before considering any tea, you want to ask, is there legitimate scientific evidence that this specific tea, consumed in reasonable amounts by real people, has measurable effects on blood glucose management? For green tea, the answer is yes. Multiple randomized controlled trials have shown modest but consistent benefits when consumed regularly over months. The evidence is strongest for traditional green tea, not concentrated extracts or supplements. For white mulberry leaf tea, there are several small but well-designed studies showing potential post-meal blood sugar benefits. The evidence is promising but not as extensive as green tea. For hibiscus, there are studies suggesting both blood pressure and blood sugar benefits, though more research is needed to establish optimal dosing and long-term effects. For cinnamon tea or cinnamon-containing blends, the evidence is mixed. Some studies show benefits, others don't, and the quality of cinnamon and preparation methods vary widely between studies. Notice I'm not mentioning dozens of exotic teas with miraculous claims. That's because the scientific evidence simply doesn't exist for most of them. The second P is protection, which focuses on safety. You need to evaluate whether adding a particular tea is safe given your current health status, medications, and individual risk factors. Start by listing all your current medications and supplements. Then research potential interactions between those medications and the tea you're considering. This isn't something you can do with a quick internet search. You need reliable sources like the Natural Medicines Database or consultation with a pharmacist or doctor familiar with herb-drug interactions. Consider your other health conditions. Do you have kidney disease? Liver problems? Heart conditions? Each of these can affect how your body processes herbal compounds and whether tea consumption is appropriate. Think about your caffeine tolerance and sleep patterns. Many herbal teas contain caffeine or other stimulating compounds that could interfere with rest, which is crucial for blood sugar control. Evaluate the quality and source of any tea you're considering. Unfortunately, the herbal tea market is poorly regulated, and some products have been found to contain contaminants, undisclosed ingredients, or wildly inconsistent concentrations of active compounds. The third P is planning, which means figuring out how a tea would fit into your overall diabetes management strategy and how you'd measure its effects. Any tea you try should complement, not replace, your current treatment plan. If you're on diabetes medications, you continue taking them. If you're following a specific eating pattern, the tea fits within that pattern. If you're monitoring your blood sugar regularly, you continue doing so. You also need a plan for monitoring the tea's effects. This means establishing baseline blood sugar patterns before you start, then tracking changes over time. It means having clear criteria for what would constitute a meaningful benefit and what would signal you should stop. Most importantly, you need your healthcare provider involved in this planning process, especially if you're taking any medications or have other health conditions. Now, let me walk you through what a scientifically sound approach to testing a tea for blood sugar benefits would actually look like. First, you'd spend 1 to 2 weeks establishing your baseline. This means monitoring your blood sugar at consistent times, keeping a simple log of your meals, physical activity, sleep, and stress levels, and maintaining your regular medication and eating routine. During this baseline period, you're looking for patterns. Do you tend to have higher blood sugar spikes after breakfast or dinner? Do certain types of meals cause more dramatic rises? How does stress or poor sleep affect your numbers? This information will be crucial for interpreting any changes you see later. Next, you choose one tea based on the evidence strength and safety considerations we discussed. Not 3 teas, not a tea plus other supplements, but one variable you're testing at a time. You'd start with a low dose consumed at a consistent time of day. For green tea, this might be 1 cup with breakfast. For mulberry leaf tea, perhaps 1 cup 30 minutes before your largest meal. The key is consistency so you can actually evaluate the effects. Then you'd continue this routine for at least 4 weeks while maintaining the same monitoring and logging you did during baseline. Real metabolic effects take time to develop, and you need enough data to distinguish actual changes from normal day-to-day variation in blood sugar. Throughout this testing period, you'd be watching for both benefits and side effects. Benefits might include lower fasting blood sugar, smaller post-meal spikes, or improvements in your overall blood sugar patterns. Side effects could include digestive upset, sleep disturbance, anxiety, or any concerning symptoms. Most importantly, you'd have predetermined criteria for when to stop. If you experience significant side effects, if your blood sugar starts running too low, or if you notice any concerning symptoms, you discontinue the tea and consult with your healthcare provider. After 4 weeks, you'd evaluate the results objectively. Has there been a meaningful improvement in your blood sugar control? Are the benefits significant enough to justify continuing? Are there any negative effects that outweigh the positives? This systematic approach is very different from the try it and see what happens mentality that often leads people into trouble with herbal products. Let me share a couple of real examples from my practice to illustrate how this might work in the real world. Maria is a 68-year-old woman with prediabetes who was interested in trying green tea after reading about its potential benefits. She was taking metformin and a blood pressure medication, but no other supplements. We spent 2 weeks establishing her baseline blood sugar patterns, which showed consistent spikes to around 160 after meals, with fasting levels in the low 100s. She was already following a Mediterranean-style diet and walking daily. After confirming there were no concerning interactions with her medications, she began drinking 1 cup of high-quality green tea with breakfast each day. She continued monitoring her blood sugar and keeping her food and activity log. After 4 weeks, we reviewed her data together. Her fasting blood sugar had dropped by an average of 8 points, and her post-meal spikes were averaging about 12 points lower. These aren't dramatic changes, but they're consistent and meaningful for someone in the prediabetic range. More importantly, she tolerated the tea well with no side effects, and felt it was easy to incorporate into her routine. 6 months later, her A1C had improved from 6.2 to 5.9%, which moved her out of the prediabetic range. Now, was this improvement due entirely to the green tea? Almost certainly not. The tea was one component of her overall approach, which also included consistent medication use, a healthy diet, regular physical activity, and good sleep habits. But it appeared to contribute to her success in a measurable way. Contrast this with Robert, a 72-year-old man with type 2 diabetes who came to see me after trying what he called a miracle diabetes tea he'd ordered online. He'd been taking the tea instead of his prescribed diabetes medications because the marketing materials claimed it would replace all drugs. When he came to see me, his blood sugar was running in the 300s, he was experiencing symptoms of severe hyperglycemia, and he was at risk for diabetic ketoacidosis, a life-threatening condition. After we got his blood sugar under control with proper medication, we analyzed what had happened. The tea he'd been using contained a mixture of herbs, some of which might have mild blood sugar effects, but nothing that could replace his insulin and metformin. The marketing had convinced him that natural meant more powerful than pharmaceutical medications, which is exactly backwards. While natural compounds can have meaningful effects, they're generally much milder than prescription drugs. More concerning, the tea contained several herbs that weren't disclosed on the label, including one that can cause liver damage when used long-term. He'd been taking megadoses because he assumed more would be better. This case illustrates several crucial points. First, natural doesn't mean harmless. Second, herb and tea marketing often makes claims that are not only exaggerated but dangerous. Third, replacing proven medical treatments with unproven alternatives can have life-threatening consequences. Now, I want to address some specific teas that are heavily marketed for blood sugar, giving you the real science behind each one. Green tea is probably the most studied tea for metabolic effects. The active compounds are primarily catechins, especially epigallocatechin gallate or EGCG. Multiple studies have shown that regular green tea consumption can modestly improve insulin sensitivity and reduce fasting blood glucose. The benefits appear to be dose-dependent up to a point, with most studies using amounts equivalent to about 3 to 4 cups of green tea per day. However, green tea contains caffeine, which can interfere with sleep and potentially worsen blood sugar control through stress hormones. For people over 60, I typically recommend starting with 1 cup daily and assessing tolerance before increasing. The tea should be consumed between meals rather than with food, as certain compounds in green tea can interfere with iron absorption. White mulberry leaf tea works through a different mechanism. It contains compounds called iminostigars that can inhibit certain enzymes involved in carbohydrate digestion, potentially leading to smaller blood sugar spikes after meals. The research is more limited than green tea, but several small studies have shown promising results when the tea is consumed about 30 minutes before meals. The effects appear to be most pronounced on post-meal blood sugar rather than fasting levels. Mulberry leaf tea is generally caffeine-free, which makes it a better option for people sensitive to stimulants or those who want to consume it in the evening. Hibiscus tea has been studied for both cardiovascular and metabolic effects. Some research suggests it may help lower blood pressure and improve insulin sensitivity, though more research is needed to establish optimal dosing. One consideration with hibiscus is that it can significantly lower blood pressure in some people. If you're already taking blood pressure medications, this could lead to hypotension, dizziness, and fall risk. Hibiscus is also naturally tart and high in vitamin C, which some people find harsh on their stomach, especially when consumed on an empty stomach. Cinnamon tea deserves special attention because it's one of the most aggressively marketed diabetes teas. The research on cinnamon and blood sugar is mixed, with some studies showing benefits and others showing no effect. Part of the confusion comes from the fact that there are different types of cinnamon with different active compound profiles. Most commercial cinnamon tea uses cassia cinnamon, which contains compounds that could be harmful in large amounts. Ceylon cinnamon is considered safer for regular consumption, but it's more expensive and less commonly used in commercial tea products. The blood sugar effects of cinnamon, when they occur, appear to be modest and may take months to develop. They're also highly individual, working for some people but not others. Now let me address some of the more exotic teas that are being heavily promoted with outrageous claims. Gymnema sylvestre is an herb that's been dubbed sugar destroyer in traditional medicine. Some studies suggest it may help reduce sugar cravings and have modest effects on blood glucose, but the research is limited and the quality of commercial products varies widely. More concerning, Gymnema can potentially interfere with diabetes medications, leading to unpredictable blood sugar levels. It's not something I recommend for people who are taking any diabetes drugs. Bitter melon tea is another heavily promoted product. While bitter melon does contain compounds that may have blood sugar effects, they can be quite potent and unpredictable. I've seen cases where bitter melon products cause dangerous drops in blood sugar, especially in people taking diabetes medications. Oolong tea falls somewhere between green and black tea in terms of processing and compound content. Some studies suggest modest metabolic benefits, but the research is less extensive than green tea. The key point is that as you move away from the well-studied teas like green tea toward more exotic options, you're entering territory where the research is limited, the safety data is sparse, and the potential for interactions or adverse effects increases. This brings me to a crucial point about tea quality and sourcing that most people don't consider. The herbal tea market is poorly regulated, which means there can be huge variations in the quality, purity, and potency of products, even those with identical labels. Some tea products have been found to contain heavy metals, pesticide residues, or contamination from improper processing or storage. Others contain much lower concentrations of active compounds than their labels claim, while some contain undisclosed ingredients that could cause interactions or side effects. If you decide to try any tea for blood sugar support, invest in high-quality products from reputable sources. Look for companies that provide third-party testing results, use organic ingredients when possible, and have good manufacturing practices. Avoid products that make outrageous health claims, contain proprietary blends that don't disclose ingredient amounts, or are significantly cheaper than similar products from established companies. Also be wary of products that combine multiple herbs in one formula. While this might seem like you're getting more benefits, it actually makes it impossible to determine which ingredients are helping, which might be causing side effects, and how they might interact with each other or your medications. Now, let me share what I consider the most important part of this entire presentation: how to build a comprehensive approach to blood sugar management that might include teas as one small component. The foundation of good blood sugar control after age 60 rests on 4 pillars: nutrition, movement, sleep and stress management, and medical care. Teas, when appropriate, can support these pillars but should never replace them. Let's start with nutrition, which has the most dramatic impact on your blood sugar of anything you can control. The most important nutritional strategy for blood sugar control is managing carbohydrate intake and timing. This doesn't necessarily mean going low carb, but it does mean being strategic about the types and amounts of carbohydrates you eat and when you eat them. Focus on high fiber, minimally processed carbohydrates that are absorbed more slowly and cause smaller blood sugar spikes. Think vegetables, legumes, whole grains in moderation, and fruits with their fiber intact rather than juiced. Pair carbohydrates with protein and healthy fats, which slow digestion and moderate blood sugar rises. A piece of fruit with nuts, vegetables with hummus, or whole grain toast with avocado will cause a much smaller blood sugar spike than the carbohydrate eaten alone. Consider the timing of your carbohydrate intake. Many people over 60 do better with smaller, more frequent meals that include some protein and fiber, rather than large meals that can overwhelm their body's ability to process glucose efficiently. One strategy that's gained research support is eating your protein and vegetables before your starches and grains during a meal. This can help moderate the blood sugar rise from the carbohydrates. Some people also benefit from a tablespoon of vinegar before meals, which may help slow gastric emptying and reduce post-meal blood sugar spikes. However, if you have stomach issues or take certain medications, vinegar might not be appropriate. The second pillar is movement, which is perhaps the most underutilized tool for blood sugar management. Your muscles are major consumers of glucose, and when they're active, they can absorb glucose from your bloodstream without needing insulin. This is why even a short walk after meals can have dramatic effects on post-meal blood sugar. For people over 60, the goal isn't intense exercise, but consistent, moderate activity spread throughout the day. Even 10 to 15 minutes of gentle walking after each meal can significantly improve blood sugar control. Resistance exercise, such as lightweight lifting or resistance band work, is particularly beneficial because it helps maintain muscle mass, which is crucial for glucose metabolism as we age. The timing of movement matters. Post-meal activity has the most immediate impact on blood sugar, but regular physical activity throughout the day helps improve overall insulin sensitivity. The third pillar is sleep and stress management, which are often overlooked but critically important for blood sugar control. Poor sleep directly interferes with blood sugar regulation through its effects on stress hormones like cortisol. Chronic sleep deprivation can lead to insulin resistance and higher baseline blood sugar levels. Most adults need 7 to 8 hours of quality sleep per night, but many people over 60 experience changes in sleep patterns that can affect blood sugar control. Establishing a consistent bedtime routine, managing light exposure, and creating a sleep-friendly environment can all help improve sleep quality and, by extension, blood sugar control. Chronic stress also elevates blood sugar through stress hormones. While you can't eliminate stress from your life, you can develop tools for managing it more effectively. Simple techniques like deep breathing exercises, gentle stretching, meditation, or even just spending time in nature can help lower stress hormone levels and improve blood sugar control. The fourth pillar is appropriate medical care, which includes regular monitoring, medication management when necessary, and ongoing communication with your healthcare team. This means keeping up with regular checkups, taking prescribed medications as directed, monitoring your blood sugar as recommended, and staying current with preventive care like eye exams and foot checks. It also means being an informed advocate for your own care, asking questions, discussing concerns, and working collaboratively with your healthcare providers to optimize your treatment plan. Now, where might tea fit into this comprehensive approach? Tea consumption could potentially support the nutrition pillar by replacing higher-calorie, high-sugar beverages and providing beneficial plant compounds that may have modest effects on glucose metabolism. Certain teas might support the stress management pillar, particularly caffeine-free herbal teas consumed as part of a relaxing evening routine. But tea should never be viewed as a replacement for any of these foundational pillars. It's a potential addition that might provide small, incremental benefits when combined with a solid foundation of good nutrition, regular movement, adequate sleep, stress management, and appropriate medical care. Let me give you a practical example of how this might work in real life. Let's say you're a 65-year-old person with prediabetes who wants to incorporate green tea into your routine. You're already taking metformin, following a Mediterranean-style diet, and walking most days of the week. You might start by replacing your afternoon soda or juice with a cup of green tea. This eliminates the sugar and calories from the previous beverage while potentially adding beneficial compounds from the tea. You drink the tea between meals to avoid interfering with iron absorption from food, and you'd monitor how it affects your sleep since green tea contains caffeine. After a month, you might notice that your afternoon blood sugar readings are slightly more stable, and you have fewer cravings for sweet snacks in the late afternoon. This is a realistic, modest benefit that supports your overall diabetes management strategy without replacing any of the foundational elements. Compare this to the fantasy being sold by tea marketers, that you can drink a special tea and eliminate blood sugar problems without changing anything else about your lifestyle or medical care. The first approach is sustainable, safe, and evidence-based. The second approach is dangerous and ultimately self-defeating. Now, let me address some of the questions I hear most frequently from patients who are considering tea for blood sugar management. Dr. Chin, how long before I see results from drinking tea for blood sugar? Real metabolic changes from tea consumption typically take 4 to 12 weeks to become apparent, and that's assuming you're doing everything else right nutrition-wise, activity-wise, and medically. If someone promises you results in days or weeks, they're either lying or they're talking about placebo effects or normal blood sugar variations that have nothing to do with the tea. What's the best time of day to drink tea for blood sugar? This depends on the specific tea and your goals. 4 teas that may help with post-meal blood sugar spikes. Consuming them 30 to 60 minutes before meals might be most beneficial. 4 teas that contain caffeine. Morning or early afternoon consumption is usually best to avoid sleep interference. 4 teas that are part of a stress management routine. Evening consumption of caffeine-free varieties might be most helpful. How much tea should I drink daily for blood sugar benefits? Most studies showing benefits use amounts equivalent to 2 to 4 cups of tea per day, but this varies by tea type and individual tolerance. More importantly, you should start with small amounts and gradually increase while monitoring for both benefits and side effects. Can I drink tea if I'm taking diabetes medications? This depends on the specific tea and medications involved. Some combinations are generally safe, while others could cause dangerous interactions. You absolutely must consult with your healthcare provider or pharmacist before adding any herbal tea to your routine if you're taking diabetes medications, blood thinners, blood pressure drugs, or any other prescription medications. Are tea extracts or supplements better than drinking tea? Generally no. Whole tea provides a complex mixture of compounds in naturally occurring ratios, along with fluid that contributes to hydration. Concentrated extracts or supplements can provide much higher doses of active compounds, which increases both the potential for benefits and the risk of side effects or interactions. Most of the safety and efficacy research has been done on tea consumption, not concentrated extracts. What about adding sweeteners to my tea? Adding sugar, honey, or other caloric sweeteners obviously defeats the purpose if you're trying to manage blood sugar. Artificial sweeteners are controversial, with some research suggesting they may interfere with glucose metabolism in some people, while others show no effect. If you need to sweeten your tea, start with small amounts and monitor how it affects your blood sugar. Many people find that they can gradually reduce sweetener use as they adapt to the natural flavors of tea. Can I drink tea with my meals? Some compounds in tea, particularly tannins, can interfere with the absorption of iron and certain other nutrients from food. If you're at risk for iron deficiency or have been told to increase iron absorption, it's generally better to consume tea between meals rather than with food. What about decaffeinated teas? Decaffeination processes can remove some beneficial compounds along with the caffeine, so decaffeinated versions may be less potent than regular teas. However, for people who are sensitive to caffeine or want to consume tea in the evening, decaffeinated versions may still provide some benefits. Herbal teas that are naturally caffeine-free, like hibiscus or mulberry leaf, might be better options than decaffeinated versions of naturally caffeinated teas. Now, let me share the framework I use with my patients for having productive conversations with their healthcare providers about incorporating tea into their diabetes management plan. Before your appointment, gather information about the specific tea you're interested in trying. This includes the scientific name of the herb, the typical dosing used in research studies, and any known interactions or contraindications. Bring a list of all your current medications and supplements, including dosages and timing. Your doctor needs this information to assess potential interactions. Be prepared to discuss your current blood sugar control, including recent A1C levels, typical daily blood sugar ranges, and any patterns or concerns you've noticed. Ask specific questions like, I'm interested in trying green tea to support my blood sugar management. Are there any concerns with my current medications? How should I monitor for effects or problems? What signs should prompt me to stop? Avoid asking vague questions like, is tea okay for diabetes? Instead, be specific about which tea, how much, and how it fits into your overall management plan. Be honest about your motivations and expectations. If you're frustrated with your current blood sugar control, say so. If you're hoping to reduce medications, discuss that openly. Your doctor can help you set realistic goals and timelines. Don't be offended if your doctor seems cautious or asks you to wait. Healthcare providers are trained to prioritize safety, and they may want to optimize your current treatment before adding new variables. If your doctor isn't familiar with the research on specific teas, ask them to review the studies with you or consult with colleagues who have more experience with integrative approaches. Now, let me address the elephant in the room. What happens when tea doesn't work, or when you realize you've been taken advantage of by fraudulent marketing? First, understand that if a tea doesn't significantly impact your blood sugar, that doesn't mean you've failed or that natural approaches don't work. It might mean that tea isn't the right intervention for you, or that you need to address other factors first. Remember that blood sugar management is highly individual. What works for your neighbor or friend may not work for you, and that's completely normal. If you've spent money on expensive tea products that don't deliver promised results, you're not alone. The tea and supplement industry generates billions of dollars annually, much of it from products that make exaggerated claims. Consider this a learning experience that will help you make better decisions in the future. Focus your energy and resources on evidence-based approaches that have proven track records. Don't let disappointment with one product make you give up on taking an active role in managing your health. There are many effective strategies for blood sugar control. You just need to find the right combination for your situation. Most importantly, don't let frustration drive you toward increasingly extreme or unproven approaches. The more desperate someone becomes, the more likely they are to fall for the next miracle cure that comes along. Let me share some final thoughts on building a sustainable, realistic approach to blood sugar management that might include tea as one small component. Start with the basics. Get your nutrition, physical activity, sleep, and stress management optimized. Work with your healthcare team to ensure your medications are appropriate and you're monitoring effectively. These foundational elements will have far more impact on your blood sugar than any tea ever could. Once you have a solid foundation, you can consider whether adding certain teas might provide incremental benefits. Approach this scientifically, testing one thing at a time, monitoring carefully, and maintaining realistic expectations. Remember that sustainable changes are usually small changes maintained consistently over time. The dramatic overnight transformations promised by tea marketers don't exist in real life. Focus on building habits and systems that you can maintain long-term, rather than looking for quick fixes that will ultimately let you down. Stay connected with your healthcare team throughout this process. They're your partners in managing your health, not obstacles to overcome. Be skeptical of any product or approach that promises to replace proven medical treatments or that tries to isolate you from professional medical care. Trust the scientific process. While medical research isn't perfect, it's the best system we have for distinguishing effective treatments from ineffective or dangerous ones. And finally, remember that managing diabetes or prediabetes is a marathon, not a sprint. You're building habits and systems that will serve you for decades, not looking for quick fixes that will fail you when you need them most. I want to conclude by sharing a story that illustrates why this topic is so important to me personally. Last year, I received a call from the emergency room about one of my patients, an 80-year-old gentleman named Frank who had been managing his diabetes successfully for over 15 years with metformin and lifestyle changes. Frank had seen an advertisement for something called Diabetes Miracle Tea that promised to cure his diabetes in 30 days. The ad featured a doctor in a white coat explaining how pharmaceutical companies were suppressing this natural cure. Convinced that he could finally be free from diabetes, Frank ordered a 3-month supply of the tea for nearly $300. The instructions told him to drink large amounts of the tea throughout the day and to stop taking his toxic diabetes medication. Within 2 weeks, Frank was in diabetic ketoacidosis, a life-threatening condition where his blood sugar had risen to over 400 milligrams per dl and his body was producing dangerous levels of ketones. He spent 4 days in the intensive care unit and nearly died from a condition that could have been completely prevented by continuing his proven diabetes medication. When I visited him in the hospital, he was devastated. Not just by the medical crisis, but by the realization that he had been deliberately deceived by people who knew their claims were false but made them anyway because they knew desperate people would buy their product. Frank recovered fully, but the experience shook his confidence in his ability to manage his health and made him afraid to try any new approaches, even legitimate ones that might have been helpful. This is why I'm so passionate about providing accurate, science-based information about teas and blood sugar. There are real, modest benefits that certain teas can provide when used appropriately. But these benefits are being weaponized by unscrupulous marketers who are putting vulnerable people's lives at risk. You deserve accurate information so you can make informed decisions about your health. You deserve to understand what teas can and cannot do, how to evaluate marketing claims, and how to approach herbal products safely. Most importantly, you deserve to know that there are no miracle cures for diabetes, but there are many effective strategies that, when combined and maintained over time, can help you live a full, healthy life with excellent blood sugar control. Certain teas might be one small part of that strategy, but they should never be the whole strategy, and they should certainly never replace proven medical treatments. If you're currently managing diabetes or prediabetes and you're interested in exploring whether certain teas might support your management plan, I encourage you to approach this systematically and safely. Start by optimizing the fundamentals. Work with your healthcare team to ensure your current treatment plan is appropriate. Focus on consistent nutrition and physical activity habits. Prioritize good sleep and stress management, and monitor your blood sugar regularly so you understand your patterns. Once you have a solid foundation, consider whether there's good evidence for any particular tea being beneficial for your specific situation. Research the safety considerations, especially potential interactions with your medications or other health conditions. Discuss your interest with your healthcare provider before making any changes. They can help you evaluate whether a particular tea is appropriate for you and how to monitor for both benefits and potential problems. If you decide to try a tea, do so systematically. Test one thing at a time, start with small amounts, maintain careful monitoring, and give adequate time for effects to develop before drawing conclusions. Remember that any benefits you see should be modest and should complement, not replace, your other diabetes management strategies. Most importantly, be skeptical of any product or claim that seems too good to be true. In healthcare, dramatic promises are almost always false promises. The path to good blood sugar control is rarely dramatic or quick, but it is absolutely achievable for most people who are willing to work consistently with their healthcare team and make sustainable lifestyle changes. Certain teas might provide small, additional benefits along that path, but they will never be the path itself. I hope this information helps you make informed decisions about your health and protects you from the predatory marketing that targets people struggling with diabetes management. Remember that you have the right to accurate information, honest marketing, and healthcare approaches that prioritize your safety and well-being above profits. Stay skeptical, stay safe, and stay connected with qualified healthcare providers who can guide you through the complex but manageable journey of diabetes care. Thank you for taking the time to learn about this important topic. Your health is worth the investment in accurate, science-based information, and I'm honored to be part of your education and decision-making process. If you found this information helpful, please share it with others who might benefit from understanding the truth about tea and blood sugar management. Together, we can combat health misinformation and help people make decisions based on science rather than marketing hype. Stay healthy, stay informed, and remember that the most powerful tool you have in managing your health is knowledge combined with a good relationship with qualified healthcare providers. The journey of diabetes management can be challenging, but it's absolutely manageable when approached with realistic expectations, good information, and appropriate professional support. Certain teas may have a role to play in that journey, but they will always be supporting players, never the stars of the show. The real stars are consistent healthy eating, regular physical activity, adequate sleep, effective stress management, appropriate medical care, and the daily commitment to taking care of yourself with kindness and persistence. Everything else, including teas, are just potential extras that might provide small additional benefits when used wisely and safely. I wish you all the best in your health journey, and I hope this information serves you well in making informed decisions about your care. Thank you for your attention, and remember, when it comes to your health, you deserve nothing less than the truth.